All right, guys, we're live, and I want to say a special thanks here to Dennis Dyack of Quantum Entanglement Entertainment for joining me on this very special show. We are just passing 10,000 subscribers, so I definitely want to thank all of you out there for subscribing and watching on my videos. I'm getting a lot of attention lately. Literally, some of the videos have gone into the 60,000 range recently. I know a lot of things have been going on with the NX, and you guys are very interested. So this is a Nintendo-focused podcast with Denis. We're going to be talking about the NX, so we're going to be talking about Nintendo and as a company, of course, his past games, his company, and lots of other interesting stuff I'm sure you'll like. So, Denis, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Dave, and congratulations on the 10,000 mark. That's amazing.
Thank you very much. So, tell us all about what you're all about these days. Silicon Knights is done, and now you got Quantum Entanglement Entertainment going on, and your YouTube channel, Quantum Tunnel. I just want to say personally, this is an awesome channel, guys. You guys should all subscribe to his channel. I'll let him explain more about it, but from what I could tell, it's very developer-focused, behind-the-scenes kind of stuff. They got motion capture things going on, and some really interesting things you guys should check out. So take it away, Denis. Let us know.
Well, thanks, Dave. Thanks. Okay, so well, first I'll start with the YouTube channel and the Quantum Tunnel. When we were thinking about creating a YouTube channel, we wanted to do something that was really different. And there's a lot of great YouTubers like yourself that are out there talking about games and their impressions. And we thought we'd create something that was from a developer point of view, what things look like from the industry. Because our company, Quantum Entanglement Entertainment, does film, television, and video games, we're showing behind-the-scenes stuff on all of that. So when it comes to like what it takes to create a game, what are our thoughts and feelings on that, we put it out there in the channel. Usually 10 minutes or 10 to 15 minutes of a video. We show motion capture. We just, and I'm so excited about this, and I'm sure we'll talk about it later, we've partnered with something called the Perimeter Institute of Theoretical Physics, which is the leading quantum physics institute in the world, where Stephen Hawking is part of it, and they're going to advise us on science for all of our games, television, and film. And I just finished having a string of conversations and interviews with some of the top quantum physicists in the world talking about quantum mechanics and science, and it's all coming on the channel. So we're trying to do something that's really different, not the typical kind of thing that you see out there. And we're excited about it. We like it. So yeah, that's the Quantum Tunnel.
Wow, that is that's a lot. That's amazing. I didn't know you were a part of that. So that is really incredible. So that's what I liked about your channel when I noticed it. Definitely, that's why I suggest everyone subscribe to it. There will be links in the description. There'll be annotations right here about the bottom of the screen when you watch this video to go subscribe to his channel. That's what I liked about it, is that it had all this developer perspective and inside interviews, and you know, a little bit about how you're making Shadows of the Eternals, and I think that's just outstanding. There's no other channel I know that's like that. So you definitely deserve a lot more subscribers. So hopefully we'll push you there some more. Now,
thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And so with my experience with, you know, I actually been waiting for this conversation with you for about 14 years. Ever since I beat, Eternal Darkness back in I think July of 2002. I was only 21 years old, but I went to E3 2001, and guys, this was back when E3 was a lot easier to get into than it is now. Back in 2001, you basically just had to be affiliated with GameStop and you could get in. So I got in no problem, and I met you, Denis, there, but it was real briefly. It was like a hello, hi, and that was it. And you know,
cool,
nothing there. But what you guys don't understand, the viewers, is that back in 2001, PlayStation 2 had just come out the year before. Xbox had just announced their first new system. People were kind of skeptical about it. Nintendo was coming off the Nintendo 64 and coming off of games like GoldenEye, Perfect Dark, Conker's Bad Fur Day, Resident Evil 2, some really mature content going on with the N64. And when the GameCube was being shown, it had a lot of great content on it. And personally, I thought that E3 was the best of the show right there. And Nintendo won that show. And so when I went there, I was blown away by Rogue Squadron 2, like everyone else was. I remember when I was at my local newspaper stand, they had the article right there on the front page, Rogue Squadron 2, most incredible graphics ever seen in a video game. And they were absolutely right. At the time, that was the most incredible thing I've ever seen in my life. And I was like, this looks just like the Star Wars Special Edition they just released 4 years ago. So I was excited to play that game. And so I went to E3, saw that game. I saw all the other content they had. And then, of course, I saw Eternal Darkness in the kind of the corner middle back of the room there with the black curtain and a bunch of representatives in black shirts with Eternal Darkness logos on their shirts and everything. I was like, ooh, it's this scary game. But it wasn't really, I mean, it was a really nice presentation. I thought the game looked fantastic, had great graphics and everything. And then I was interested in the core gameplay of it when I played it, about the whole the puzzle aspect of it, the darkness of the game, obviously, and the sanity effects that were being publicized, obviously, over all the publications, all the fan magazines at the time before the internet really had taken off. All the magazines are covering it. So, and of course, the aiming of the different limbs on the enemies with the core mechanics there. And I said, oh, this is really cool. It's a different take on survival horror. You know, it's not. I didn't really think it was a really scary game, but it was more about the interaction of the game itself, the story and everything. And I was interested in the mechanics of the story connecting with the gameplay itself, which it did really well. But I couldn't really get a good impression of that at E3, of course. Just the first, I think it was the first temple stage they showed with, what was his name? The skeleton guy that turned into a skeleton guy later, the guy who died.
Oh, Anthony.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so anyway, GameCube launched. It was outstanding and everything. And then I got Eternal Darkness in when the game launched, I think in June 2002. And I beat the game, and I beat the game on one of the story choices. And I said, "Oh, that's great! This is a great game. Cool. All the different time periods we went through and everything. This is great." And then I realized that you could go back and beat the game again on the second choice of the story. And then I beat that, and then I went back again to beat on the third choice, and then and then the game was like, it was like one of those aha moments. Like, this game is actually something much more than what I was expecting after beating the entire game 3 times on 3 different time periods, 3 different story arcs, because it opened up like a 4th dimension, basically, is what it did. And I don't think people really focused on this that much back at that time, because there's so much content in the game. Putting forth the effort to go through it 3 times is kind of a lot of work for some people. But when you do, it kind of, that's the enjoyment of that game, is that you come to realize how much effort was put into the actual story of it. And that's what I really appreciated about that game. It opened up different thoughts in my mind of where we could go with game creation. And I wanted to talk to you about that for 14 years. So what's your take on that ending in Eternal Darkness? If you guys haven't played the game yet, I suggest picking it up on your GameCube or Wii and go ahead and beat it 3 times. It's worth it.
So the last conversation I had about this ending, I think you'll appreciate this, was with the founder of BioWare, Ray. And he loved the ending essentially as much as you did, and we talked about it. So Shadow of the Eternals, not Shadow, sorry. Reset.
We're getting there.
Eternal Darkness is cosmic horror. And cosmic horror is horror defined and based upon science, which all comes from Lovecraft. And I'm a huge believer in using science and using history as a platform to build from, because there's nothing more interesting. And what you're talking about there with the ending specifically was something I was personally really proud of. And what it does, it takes the non-linear aspect of a video game, which is replay. So you can play a game over and over again. And it builds it and wraps it around a story of parallel time streams, essentially.
Yeah.
And, parallel dimensions. And what's going on, and this is a big spoiler, so for those who don't want to, if you're going to go back and play it, turn off just for a second. But what's happening is Mantarok, which is the dead god who's dying and has been defeated by Pius, has crafted a plan to have all of the ancients fight each other in different parallel dimensions and kill each other off.
Right.
And the only the person who is the tool in this is you. So by replaying the game and going through a different dimension and playing it once more, you will eventually help Mantarok defeat all of the great ancients. And so that's a combination of both replay value intertwined with quantum mechanics and storyline. And as you can tell by the name of our new company, Quantum Entanglement Entertainment, I love quantum physics. I love everything behind it, and it's something that a lot of people did not pick up on, and it requires a real effort in storyline crafting to do that, and but super happy about it. Glad you picked it up. It gives me great joy to hear you talk about it in this way, because of all of the story moments that I crafted, and I crafted that particular part, that's probably the thing I am most proud of. I really enjoy that. So
yeah, I picked on it right away. Like, and the reason why, guys listening, is because I'm a huge Star Trek: The Next Generation fan. It's my all-time favorite television series. I grew up on it. I was born in 1980, so that was just like, that was my time. And the last season of The Next Generation had 2 episodes in particular. The episode called Parallels, and the last episode called All Good Things. And with Parallels, you had, Lieutenant Worf going through these quantum realities where he hit a quantum fissure on his warp engines, and things exploded, and he went through all these different realities. And that was a really interesting episode because you get to see all these different outcomes take place. He's the only constant, though, that matters in his universe. So he's bouncing around all these universes, and what happens at the end of that episode is that all the universes collide together, and they have to find a way to seal all that back to the way it was, or else something really bad could happen. But and then on the last episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation, I saw this extreme connection with Eternal Darkness, because Star Trek in the last episode, All Good Things, there's 3 different time periods that create a paradox, because they scan beyond the spectrum in the future, which creates the same thing happening in the past. It's a lot to explain, but if you guys watch the last episode of Next Generation, you would understand that there's basically, the captain is looking for this anomaly in the future. He actually creates it by connecting these 3 beams of energy in 3 different time periods. And what happens, since he created it in the future, it gets larger in the past and ends up destroying humanity from the beginning of time. So I saw this connection in Eternal Darkness, the 3 connecting time periods connecting into one overall arc of a story to accomplish something in a different dimension. So Captain Picard in The Next Generation, his 4th dimension is the reality he lives in. The 3 other realities are 3 different time periods that he must fix to fix his own reality that only he is aware of.
Yeah, it's really rare that people attempt these things, because they can be really confusing. And I think that particular episode was done exceedingly well. And the fact that the people who do play Eternal Darkness through 3 times and do right, wow, that ending was really interesting, I didn't expect it, says to me that we did something right with that as well. And for one of the things that I'm actually kind of happy about with that as well is not a lot of people realize that we're dealing with quantum physics there. When we're talking about Channel Eternals, they just see it as different dimensions, and they don't understand sort of all what's behind it. And if you can do that, it makes it even better, because quantum physics, very tough stuff. So
yeah, exactly. No, I mean, it's incredible, because it opens up so many possibilities. Science fiction, you can literally have infinite possibilities of story writing if done correctly. So I thought that's what it was really interesting about Eternal Darkness, is that the personal connection I had resonated with my youth with this science fiction television show that's my favorite show of all time, which increases the value of the ending of Eternal Darkness to me and the entire game. So it makes it so memorable in that sense. Besides it being an excellent, well-crafted game, there's so much effort put into that game that it blew my mind. And it definitely deserved all the awards it got. Putting the whole package together like that was an absolutely incredible experience for me personally. So I'm really honored to talk to you about this finally after so much time. And what I really wish that since Nintendo owns the IP for that game, they just do a remaster to reintroduce that game to the audience of today. Because with what they could do now with technology, the presentation of the game could be told in a way that would even further put that story arc into the limelight even greater. So I don't know. Hopefully Nintendo does that at some point. I know that they own the IP and not much you can do about it at this point. But anyway, so getting back to what we're talking about with Eternal Darkness, I wanted to get your viewpoint now, getting into Shadows of the Eternals. You mentioned you want to do something like that with Shadows of the Eternals too. So what's your goal then, like, for that?
Shadow of the Eternals is, I'd say, sort of the next evolvement of that type of thinking. So generally, the construction of the plot line and just the way the game is constructed is extremely similar, except we're going to go into more detail in different areas. If you go on our forums, there's all kinds of details, but the magical system itself is also going to evolve sort of to the next level, where we really want people to get a different type of experience. Now, there's something else we're doing with Shadow of the Eternals that's very, very different, and it's been quiet for a while, but once things get rolling again, we're going to open it all up. We're actually going to work with the community to help create some of the elder gods and some of the creatures. So we're going to want community participation with it as well. So when we were creating Eternal Darkness, I would be on the IGN forums all the time. That's when forums were just starting getting big, and I'd interact with people and they'd ask questions, we get feedback, and we really tried to incorporate some of the feedback that we got into Eternal Darkness, but it's very difficult because you've got a tight schedule. With what we're doing now, we've got things set up where we're going to want the community to participate and create creatures, create storylines, all kinds of things that contribute to this content in different ways. And Sanity affects the same kind of thing. Back in the day when we created Eternal Darkness, there was social media, pretty much didn't exist back then. There was the internet, but there wasn't anything like Twitter or Facebook, and so there's all kinds of different things that we can pull in for all of this content. So because I never ever want to spoil the story, but it takes place over 2,500 years, over human history. And it's of course, completely different story arc, but something that starts really, really small, just like Eternal Darkness did. But by time you're about halfway through, you realize how big it is. It's at a cosmic level again. And you can, of course, look forward to more quantum mechanics, more quantum physics, and at the same time, not a survival horror, a very story-driven action adventure that's Lovecraftian, and based upon cosmic horror.
Yeah, that's exactly what I want. So you hit the nail on the head there. Now, the only thing I remember when you guys did the Kickstarter, you mentioned it was going to be a episodic type of thing. Now that's not really what I would prefer personally. I would like to have the full experience, because the reason why, Dennis, is because when you play a game like that, like when I played Eternal Darkness, I played it for I think I played it 5 days straight without stopping. I wanted to beat the entire game. I kept going and going and going. So I hope. My hope is that the game is a full experience when it's released, and maybe not so much episodic. What do you think on that?
Well, so we went episodic for several reasons. One is that we were an independent, smaller company back then, and we couldn't afford to develop the whole thing. So we made a crowdfunding attempt that did not succeed, and the best way for us to do it at the time was to put out episodes. And then have those be successful and have it continue to fund the game. as we go. Now, of course, if we've got full funding for Shadow of the Eternals, then we'd look at all of the options. And I can't announce or talk about anything at this point. Sorry, I wish I could. I'm super excited with what's going on, but it's not the time yet. So
yeah, I hear you. It's just a slight concern I had for the past, but that was 3 years ago. I believe it was shown in 2013. So yeah, it's just something I wanted to share, just because I've never personally been into the episodic type of games, unless there's like episode 1 and 2, but like 5 episodes, it's kind of sometimes the games start to lose their meaning, and you're like, what's going on here? Where am I in this game? I've played games like that, and personally I haven't really enjoyed that much. But hey, I'm hopeful that you guys have obviously you guys know what you're doing, so I'm hopeful for what the future entails for that. So wow, so that's really exciting. Can't wait to hear more about Shadows of the Eternal. So any information on when we will see more gameplay from that in the future?
There's likely to be some announcements in the not too distant future. When we actually do it, I can't say at this point, but I do think that there's going to be a couple shockers coming. So, and I'm really looking forward to see what the responses are. We're really excited. And remember as well, our company, we're just not doing games. So we're pairing with television and film as well. So there will be a myriad of things coming out on some of the things that we're doing. And it's going to be very different. But tell you what, when we do announce, I would love to come back on and talk to you about it. How's that?
That's perfect. Yeah, if you have a trailer or whatever you want to show in the future, we'll have you back on and we'll talk about the more information on the game. But yeah, I'm excited to see it. Hopefully sometime later this year. Who knows? So anyway, let's move on to Nintendo. Everybody wants to hear about Nintendo, of course, so we have a lot to talk about with them. Getting back to what I was saying about the GameCube. Now, the GameCube was an incredible system, and you had a lot of experience with it. Of course, you had Eternal Darkness, as we know, and then you had Metal Gear Solid: The Twin Snakes, which was a huge game, also. Now, but before that, you had a lot of experience with the Nintendo 64. You had Eternal Darkness, in fact, pretty much completed on that system before you moved it over to GameCube. I knew about that. I remember seeing screenshots of the game in one of the magazines, and I was like, this is an N64 game? I was like blown away. I was like, well, how are they doing this? So, and I know the game got moved completely over to the GameCube, and you had to redo the whole game. Can you give some more insight about what happened there?
Yeah, it's funny. So we were working on the N64 for Eternal Darkness for quite a while. And as a matter of fact, we were doing all kinds of crazy things like rewriting the microcode that would make it, make the cartridge and console run as fast as it could. And we were running Eternal Darkness 640 by 480 without the memory card. And
incredible.
Well, Mr. Miyamoto and a bunch of others from Nintendo of Japan told me they'd never seen that done before. And we had done it for several reasons. One, we figured out a way to do certain things with the technology that for whatever reason, no one else had. And so we were able to really get some good compression in there. But then on top of that, the cost of that memory card and not everyone having it would really limit your sales. So we didn't want to go to that memory card unless we had to. So, and I remember when we were demoing it was one time in front of Mr. Miyamoto and a bunch of guys from Nintendo of Japan. The technology guys actually sort of politely looked around, and when we were demoing, just popped the dev kit to see if the memory card was in there, and they were like, they would like give the nod like it's not there.
Yeah. And, I don't know how you guys did it, but that's amazing because a lot of games that use the expansion pack just increased resolution, but frame rate still suffered. And I think you guys were still getting a good frame rate on the without the expansion pack.
Yeah, we were. So on the N64 version, we were getting 30 frames per second on the N64 640 by 480. On the GameCube version, not a lot of people know this, but we were 60. Locked at 60 frames. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I could tell.
Yeah, and I personally love 60 frames per second. There's all kinds of stories. We're going to talk about that in a bit. But So we were working on the N64 version, and we were nearing beta. So pretty much the game was done, and we're starting to just get bugs. And Nintendo made the decision overall that it wanted to move away from the N64 towards their new console, and we came out just too late. And so they were like, we think we should move all our games to the GameCube now. And I got a call from Henry Sturchy, who was the producer at Nintendo of America, and it was the strangest call. It was just a normal night. He called me and said, "Hey, Henry, what's going on? Why are you calling me at home?" And he goes, "Are you sitting down?" And I was, "Yes, I know. Well, I will." And then he told me that all N64 games are being stopped, and we need to move Eternal Darkness to the GameCube. And I was in complete shock. The team was really, really disappointed because we put all this work into this technology.
Understandable.
Ironically, at the same time, we were working on a 2-human prototype on the GameCube, so we knew that hardware really well. We took all of that, brought it over to Eternal Darkness. The entire company just went, "Okay, everyone's on this now. Let's get this done, and let's redo things." And I think in retrospect, it was definitely the right thing to do, because we were able to do so many more things with the GameCube than what we could have done with the N64. And it gave us some time to breathe and a lot of time to polish. And there were only I guess Eternal Darkness, if I was to describe it as all the games that I've ever made, it was the one that I have the least number of regrets on.
Oh, really?
Yeah. There's only one thing to me that I would like to have changed that really bothers me to this day, and that's the magic system wasn't a true fully developed economy because we ran out of time.
Oh, okay.
So what would happen basically if you moved your character around, the magic meter would grow. What I wanted to do was have a spell that would change sanity for magic. So when you finished an enemy off, you get more sanity. Then you cast a spell, it takes sanity away and give you magic back. So you'd have to kill enemies to get magic.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, but there was a concern of putting that system in so late in the game because it may make the game a lot harder, and it was already pretty hard at the time. A lot of people got stuck on some of the, I guess, challenge rooms where you had to fight like these hordes of creatures.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah. So that was the N64 version, and when we redid that, I think we did show that at E3, the N64 version briefly. So there were screenshots out there, and
yeah. I saw a video of it too, like a pre-alpha, beta, almost. I did see video of the game, which was looked outstanding. I was like, wow, I can't wait to play this on the N64. It looks amazing. And then we move over to GameCube, and I was like, oh, okay, well that looks amazing too.
Oh, thanks. It's funny. Eternal Darkness hit a couple bumps that were completely out of our control, and another story that you may or may not know, we were making launch. We were all ready to do to get the game out at launch, and because of 9/11 and the fact that we had a Crusader in the game, we had to rewrite 1/3 of the game, and the game almost was canceled.
Oh man!
We picked an area in the game, the Middle East, obviously, and it wasn't anti-Arabic at all. It just had content in it, and at the time, people were really, really concerned, and understandably so.
I remember the level. You're a special forces guy in Iraq, right? Wasn't that the one?
Yep. A special forces guy, and then we had a Crusader in the game that we pulled, and we had to rewrite. I remember just being in Japan. And just going through everything, what we'd have to change, and we changed a lot. And so that delayed us another 3 or 4 months, is why the game came out a little later. So, but it still worked out. So,
well, I thought it was a perfect release timing, and personally, because the GameCube, after 2001's original launch, 2002, the first half didn't have very many games. A Resident Evil remake was one of them, and then it came out. Eternal Darkness came out shortly thereafter. So I thought it was a perfect timing. Personally, I wanted to ask you about your interchanges with Miyamoto. Did he help with Eternal Darkness at all, as far as giving tips and things like that?
Oh yes, I've never met someone who's so focused on trying to make things good, and he says both very focused feedback on particular gameplay items, and then at the same time he'll give you 10,000 overview of what he thinks of the feel and the spirit of the game. He'll be like, I am not sure if we're going too much in this direction, and I think the spirit of the game needs to go in this direction. So you both get very specific feedback on certain mechanics, and then at the same time he would give very general feedback on the spirit of where everything's going. So yeah, it was pretty awesome working with Mr. Miyamoto, and he did contribute for sure.
Now, I don't recall, but is his name in the credits?
Yep,
it is. Okay,
yes.
Fantastic. Yep. And back then, though, I don't think Iwata was president yet. Did you have any interchanges with Satoru Iwata at the time?
Oh, many, just as many as Mr. Miyamoto. So a lot of people don't know this. The first person to ever visit Silicon Knights from Nintendo Japan was Mr. Iwata. Oh. Mr. Iwata was the person who recommended that Nintendo buy an equity stake in Silicon Knights. So he was the person who drove all of that. And so I got to know him quite well. And he was on our board of directors for a while. I spoke to him on a regular basis whenever I was in Japan. And so I would say the level of interaction with Mr. Iwata was equal to that of Mr. Miyamoto, in some cases more, actually. And because he had board of directors duties and things like that. And I remember he became president of Nintendo, I think when we were working on Twin Snakes. And
I think it was 2003.
Yeah, I think so. And I remember being on stage with Mr. Kojima, Mr. Miyamoto, Bill Trenton, and we're all talking, and then they announced it, and I congratulated Mr. Iwata, and I was like, wow. And he's like, I know.
He's like, I didn't know that either.
Yeah. And
was he as happy as he seemed? He's a pretty positive guy, wasn't he?
He was amazing. I was so shattered when he passed away, and he is one of the best guys I've ever met in the industry. He was amazing. And that same year, I met Mr. Yamauchi as well.
Oh, wow.
And I actually was in a rare picture when he was going around Nintendo of Japan as well, when he was retiring. So it was this sort of massive number of cascading events that was pretty interesting for me. Those people are so amazing, all of them. And it's funny, they're so talented, and because the culture is very different, I often see here in North America, often people, because they don't understand their perspective, they're often like, a lot of people downplay them a lot, and I'm just like, all the time, no one makes better games than these guys, consistently across the board in the history of the video game industry. The closest group I can think of is Blizzard, that even comes close to those guys, but even Blizzard doesn't, in my opinion, touch Nintendo. They're amazing, and they're amazing not because of luck, because they work really hard, they know their stuff, and they have a tradition and a craft of making excellent video games. So
exactly, man. Well, that is awesome that you got to meet all those people in Nintendo, and thank you so much for sharing that. Now, with going back to the GameCube and back to the N64 and even back to the SNES, when we think about the last 10 years for Nintendo with the Wii U and the Wii, I believe, I've talked about this with the fans on my channel and a lot of other people. They don't seem to get it. I'm 35 years old. I've seen it all with Nintendo, and I don't consider myself privileged or anything, but I've seen the history. So basically, you know, a lot of people have criticized the Wii and Wii U for having, you know, more of a family-focused type of mentality. However, what they don't realize is back, you know, from 1990 to about 2006, Nintendo was extremely focused on the core gamer, and including the more mature type titles, especially from 1993 to about 2005. You had titles like Mortal Kombat 2 and Mortal Kombat 3 on the SNES, Killer Instinct, and then on N64 you had Killer Instinct also, and you had GoldenEye, Perfect Dark, Resident Evil, Conker's Bad Fur Day, and it went on with the GameCube. You had Eternal Darkness, of course, and you had Resident Evil, the entire series, and Resident Evil 4, the greatest game of all, one of the greatest games of all time, and you know, the Metroid Prime series. It goes on and on, even Time Splitters as well. So it went on, and even, you know, despite what people think, there's even quite some extremely gruesome games on the Wii as well, like Mad World, for instance, probably the most violent video game I've ever seen in my life. So with this mentality of people criticizing Nintendo with the Wii to the Wii U, well, what is your take on that? Because the mindset thinks that this is how Nintendo is and how they've always been.
So I think a couple things. The first one is this history repeating itself, and people not basically not understanding the history of Nintendo exactly as you've stated it, and ignoring the golden rule of Nintendo, which is my golden rule: never count Nintendo out, ever. Period. They have more money than anyone else right now, and they can, like, the Wii U didn't perform the way that they wanted it to. That's okay, because they are dedicated to video games. Sony and Microsoft, who I think, you know, also are great hardware manufacturers, they're in very different positions. Sony does more than video games, and so does Microsoft. Okay, people don't take that into account. And when you're looking to see who's in better shape, if you look at the financials, it's a pretty easy answer. And you have to remember, when you take into, say, you look at Microsoft, that's a very small division. The games division is a very small division of Microsoft. So all these people, all these naysayers, as soon as I hear them, I'm just like, come on, again? You're going to count them out again? Stop doing it. It just doesn't make any sense. And so are they perfect? Are they going to dominate every single console cycle? No, no one can do that. That's impossible. Am I really excited about the NX? I think so. I think probably more than ever out of any other, you know, previous console generation. I remember Mr. Iwata saying some things on how, just seeing how excited he was on talking about the future. I know these guys, and I feel really good about what's coming. So, and I think those who are concerned and worried don't. And a lot of the other issues that happen, especially with some media and stuff, Nintendo doesn't work like a lot of the other publishers do. They will, you know, they don't spend a ton of money marketing and on huge parties or anything like that. They just put out their games and say review them. And a lot of groups don't like that. They want the huge parties, and they want to be treated specially. And Nintendo's all about the games. They care about the games, and you know, that's how they're going to be. So I look at the naysayers and go, okay, whatever. I don't give them credence. I'm excited about Nintendo, and I think every Nintendo fan has a right to be. So
yeah, exactly. Like, the last 10 years does not represent an entire company's existence. There's no, you can't justify that, especially when I don't know if you saw the recent video I did, but I did a video on how big corporations change in big business. Basically, when you have a failure, what's considered a failure and money loss, companies usually make a big change, and you have corporate that changes, you have the CEO that changes, you have management all across the board that changes, and we're actually seeing that with Nintendo the last year. God for, and we're not talking about necessarily with Iwata passing, but that it's included in that. But it's just the entire across the board. We can see the changes in Nintendo, and in fact, their logo has changed as well. So to say that it's business as usual, you know, when a company makes a product that doesn't do as well, they're more than likely going to switch gears. And you know, I think that's what they're doing with the NX, is that they saw the things that they did wrong with the Wii U, and they're trying really hard to change that up with the NX. And that's why there's people out there who are saying that, you know, Nintendo is just going to release another gimmick console and have you know, specs that are below an Xbox One, basically, which is like 4 years old right now. You know what I mean? So these are actual rumors that are being spread by certain people on the internet right now, saying that, oh, I have insider information. The NX is going to be another Wii, basically low power and a gimmick in the controller. But then I'm hearing other rumors as well that are been rumors from developers saying that the NX will actually be more powerful than PlayStation 4, closer to what Sony is going to be releasing with the Neo console, because of the competition factor, and easy to develop for, ports. You know, porting games extremely easy, development tools extremely easy, and I can see the business side of that. I see that making sense. The reason why I would be more inclined to believe a rumor like that is because of the business aspect of it. Makes perfect sense. So you have Kimishima now, who is a business major. He ran an entire bank company in the past, and for competition's sake, a big business would need to be competitive regardless of what their past was. If you're making a change in a business, you have to be competitive with the competition. What competition is Nintendo in? They're in the video game competition, obviously, with Sony and Microsoft. Regardless of what people think, hey, they're not competing with these consoles. That's baloney. They have to, because they were looking for the casual market. They said so themselves with the Wii. They got it for a short period of time. That market is fickle. They could care less about Nintendo as a brand. We, the gamers, we love Nintendo. We want Nintendo to be Nintendo. So I can understand the fans being a little bit, feeling like they got stabbed in the back with the Wii. I understand that. However, they still had core experiences on the Wii. It's just that it was a lot of it was catered to bringing these people who didn't play games before. They were extremely successful. However, since those fans of those experiences left for smartphone devices, Nintendo's kind of had a wake-up call and say, you know what, great. They could care less about our consoles. We could care less about them too. Let's go ahead and focus on the core market again. I see that's what they're doing because of the business side aspect of it. What do you see?
So I agree that everyone's looking at the cell phone market and saying, wow, that's all the young generation now, they're playing games on tablets and phones. That has changed everything. It's why mobile is so big and why it's grown so fast, and why the console market generally has become more stagnant and not grown nearly as much as that stuff. Now, so where I would slightly disagree, I agree with you on almost everything where you're saying that they're going to refocus on the core market. I totally agree. I think that's the right move. But where I think they're going to expand, and where they're going to try to expand, is into that mobile market if they can. So they're going to try to reach out and grab some of those consumers and get them in. So that's not to say with the Wii, definitely they went in that direction. But I think with this console, they're going to stay with the hardcore. But I think when they're talking about getting their brands out there and getting out there with as much as they can, they're going to try to bring those to their console somehow. And I think that's some of the big things that they're talking about. You know, from a standpoint of, I don't think they'll ever give up on the younger marketplace. I think they know it really well. And one of the things that's happening that I'm particularly interested in is if you look at the mobile market, you've got a bunch of really big players in there. Like Clash of Clans is a really good example. Angry Birds, just throwing some others. Farmville, there's like a bunch of other games that companies that you can sort of name. But the interesting thing about all of those games, and Clash of Clans just got sold for like $9 billion, which is insane, but they're making a lot of money, so I understand. They've only made one hit game, each one of those companies. One, that's it, one.
Yeah.
And as these marketplaces, you know, collide, and they're going to collide, It's not clear how many consoles there's going to be. I think there's going to be this could be the last console generation we see before it becomes ubiquitous with cloud technology and all kinds of different things. But you're going to have companies like Nintendo, who has made more hit games than anyone else, coming into the marketplace and facing off against these other companies that have made one hit game. And to me, I'm extremely confident that companies like Nintendo are going to do very well. And no one knows, because a lot of the mobile and tablet groups are all their games are based off metrics and numbers and attach rate. It's just really a strange thing. And I remember seeing an article about 4 or 5 months ago saying that the number one thing to keep mobile games interesting for gamers is engagement. And I did a talk in 1996 called Engagement Theory on how to engage players with video games. So I think it's all starting to finally come around. And so I agree with everything you're saying. I just don't think they're going to give up on that marketplace. It doesn't make any sense that they would.
No, I think I should. I definitely don't think they will either. But I think what I was getting at is more about having the console itself be up to par with what the competition is doing is what I mean.
Yeah. Anyone saying that it's not going to be up to par is kind of like, okay. It's like there's just naysayers, in my opinion.
Yeah, the thing is, I understand what they're doing with mobile on the cell phone. They already launched their first mobile app a few months ago. I understand that, and if it tricks them to come back to the consoles, hey, I'm all for that. but yeah, they want to engage those players too. I understand that. My issue is that people simply do not trust. Well, I'm going to say do not trust, but they feel like they got burned with the Wii and Wii U, and they say like, you know what, I'm not going to believe it until Nintendo actually shows it. So I think they will show the NX soon, but I personally believe that they will have competitive specs and have a innovation for the gamer that is not going to be something that's going to have them not want to play the system, basically. Because with the Wii U, it was a great idea. The timing though was a little bit off, in my opinion, because the tablet market had already taken off by the time the Wii U came out, and the way the system works could be a little smoother. Could have had a smoother launch than how it did, and but again, the games were fantastic on the Wii U. The first party content was absolutely fantastic. Now, I played the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild at E3, and that was incredible. That was the Nintendo that made Super Mario 64. You could tell that's the same group of guys who've been here for the last 25, 30 years. And you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I do exactly know what you mean. And actually, it's more than 30 years. So I've been making video games now about 30 years. And at Silicon Knights, back in the day at Silicon Knights, if you're at Silicon Knights for more than 10 years, we'd knight you and give you a sword. And we had around 40 or 50 people at the company, around 200 people that had swords. So that's a significant amount. That was nothing compared to Nintendo. When we were working with Nintendo, they had people there, and that was back in 2002, that had already been working together for 30 years. So now they've been working together for almost 50 years. Wow. That is some of the strongest core teams of anywhere in the world. And it's a Japanese company, so people generally don't leave the company. It's just they have so much when it comes to experience, bar none. They're a great group. And Zelda, there's a bunch of things I want to go back and touch base on a bunch of things you said, but
go ahead.
I have never been so excited for a game than that game. And I saw it, and I look at it, and the amount of evolution within that product and in that game is bigger than anything else I've seen in a long time. I love Zelda games, of course, but when I look at that, I was blown away. I was like, wow, look at this thing. It is so, and then they put a 90-minute demo out on the show floor. No one does that. No one. Yeah. It's so hard to do that. Only they could do it. Now, getting back to all the rumors that you talked about with the NX, this is my personal anecdotal experience with it. I think the number of rumors that you're seeing is directly proportional to the excitement of this console compared to the other ones. I don't think there was that much excitement for the new Xbox and the new PlayStation, frankly.
No.
And there certainly wasn't these numbers of rumors. They're going VR, they're not going VR. Sony and Microsoft are coming out with a 1.5 to compete, which, you know, all of these different rumors are all around the new Nintendo system.
Yeah.
And to me, that shows the excitement that's out there. And for those people who are Nintendo fans and are feeling that Nintendo has to really prove themselves before they look back at the system, I think that's perfectly okay. I know Zelda just sold me. Yeah, I just look at that game and I'm like, wow! I was just so. It looks so awesome. I didn't get a chance to play it. I didn't go to E3 this year, but
I was lucky enough to play it. The thing is that when I played that game, I realized something, is that Nintendo, they want to create games in a way that suits them. They want to reach as many of their audience as possible. Now, if they can't do that with hardware, you know, they're going to make a more powerful hardware to do that. Like Nintendo 64 pushed new graphic technology because it allowed them to create a fully 3D interactive environment with Mario. And they said, oh, God, we got to make a console that's powerful enough to do that. So it was probably 10 times as powerful as Super Nintendo to do that, because the Super FX chip in SNES wasn't cutting it, right? It was too slow. It did good for Star Fox, but yeah. But anyway, with the Wii U, the game looks fantastic, but there are things there are technical limitations that I could tell by playing the demo. The game looks beautiful, but there are some things that they will definitely improve upon in the NX version, which they confirmed. So they will make hardware that is as powerful as they want it to be, as long as if it allows them to push the boundaries of game development, they will do it. That's what I'm trying to say here.
I couldn't agree more. And I think that when you look at Nintendo, they have the most experienced developers in the world, and at the same time they're in lockstep with the people who make the hardware, and so Nintendo is a development driven company, and they develop everything based on where they think the right direction is that will make their games the best, and by the best, it's for the right price point, for the right thing for the consumer, for the right gameplay. They look at all those things and put it in. So you're not going to get a $10,000 console from them. They just won't do it. They think that's too expensive. They don't want people to pay a ton of money. And then at the same time, when you look at something like the N64, it was able to change so many things. And what a lot of people don't remember from that era, 3D was pretty weak back then. And when the N64 came out, not only did they create great hardware at the time, but they helped write the language on how to do 3D games with controllers. Because back at the time, there were very, very, very few 3D games. And Nintendo did by far some of the best camera work at the time. And a lot of people looked at their games and went, okay, we're going to start doing that in ours. And thus, games on the PlayStation, other ones started really mimicking what Nintendo did. So I couldn't agree more. I don't think anyone should have any fears on any of that stuff. And it should have nothing but excitement, really.
Yeah, and I've personally been criticized for being optimistic, but it's just because I have a lot of history with Nintendo. I've seen where they've been, I've seen where they are, and I can see where they're going to go. It makes logical sense to me. So the fans who have seen the Wii and Wii U, I can understand where they're coming from. But for me, I'm optimistic, and based on just even on Zelda, you can see where they're going. It's like this is what they're working on right now. They want to have technology that allows them to branch out, and if creating more open world games like Zelda is what they're going to do, they're going to have hardware that is powerful enough, and for third parties to do that well, as you know.
And so Dave, I guess I'm in your camp. I'm exceedingly optimistic, and I always have been. There's been naysayers for the last 30 years on Nintendo. Now Nintendo's going to do ever since I'm blanking on the name now. What was the VR? What was the first VR thing they did?
Virtual Boy.
Virtual Boy. Ever since the Virtual Boy came out and it didn't succeed, even though I thought the system was very interesting and way ahead of its time. Ever since
it definitely was ahead of its time.
Oh yeah, for sure. Ever since that time, there's been naysayers. That was kind of like the naysayer faction was born out of that. And because it was the first system that Nintendo made that didn't succeed and be overwhelmingly successful. They brought the video game industry from the ashes. Like after the Atari console bombed and retail refused to carry video games in their stores, if it wasn't for Nintendo, there'd be, frankly, not much of a video game industry today, or certainly look a lot different. They brought all that back because they believed in it. And so someone like me, who I like talking about technology and where it's going and trying to guess where it's going, my feeling is that eventually it's going all the way to the cloud. And so what that means is hardware disappears and it's all hidden behind your internet connection. But when I look at Nintendo from that perspective, they're in the best position because they make the best software. So it's whoever, at that point, hardware becomes irrelevant, and it's just whoever makes the best games will dominate. And it doesn't, and hardware becomes an afterthought because you can upgrade and scale clouds to be as powerful or as small as you want them. So from that perspective, looking at the longevity of Nintendo, especially with the huge war chest that they still have, I give them the biggest chance of surviving out of all the console manufacturers right now. So if I was to bet on one group, I would bet Nintendo, and very safely. I feel my bet would be very safe. So
yeah, and guys, if you doubt how much money Nintendo has, go on Forbes and look up their net worth. I think it's like $16-17 billion, something like that. They have plenty of money. That's not the issue. But as far as talking about technology, I really like talking about tech as well. Now, what's interesting is that the PlayStation 4 came out in 2013, and it was based on a pretty decent AMD graphics card at the time, but it clocked at about 1.8 teraflops, right? Now you have AMD releasing these brand new RX 480, 470, 460s that can push over 5 teraflops for a retail price of starting at 150 for the 470. That is an incredible breakthrough by AMD. Just on AMD's standpoint, what's your opinion on where they're going as a company?
AMD, I think they're a fantastic company, and I think the leaps and bounds that you're seeing with certain technologies are amazing. And for the naysayers out there who are saying, "Oh, looking at this spec compared to this spec," whenever you look at new technology, my background's computer science, and it is nearly impossible to gauge, especially when you're dealing with new tech, to even try to gauge where that is compared to something that's 2 years old, because the hardware configurations are so massively different. Some people look at clock speeds and they'll say, "Oh, this clock speed, therefore it's not going to be as fast." That's completely meaningless. Unless you sit down and look at the throughput and spend time with the system, you just can't look at a piece of paper and say X. And that was the biggest joke, I think, about, I guess, 2 console generations ago when people started first talking about teraflops. This system does this many teraflops, and this has got the cell processor. But no one talked about how hard it was to program for the cell, and that you can only get 2 to 3 of the cells to work and or to utilize them fully. So it's these kind of things where people look at a piece of paper and go, "See how powerful this is." It's just not practical. And
technology has dropped dramatically in price.
It has.
Like when developing that PlayStation 4, no doubt that graphics card cost a lot of money for them to develop at that time. But that was 4 years ago in 2012 when they were developing, released in 2013. Now you have these graphic cards that are extremely cheap and outperform that level of power by 4 or 5 times easily.
Right.
And they're like hundreds of dollars more cheap now, just recently now with AMD releasing that. So that's why I'm optimistic about Nintendo. They have a long history with AMD. Of course, there's nothing announced, but it's highly likely, in my opinion, that they will go with something from AMD. With the price and the value and the power all coming together, I think they're in a pretty good position to have some kind of a deal there.
Well, you're looking at a quarter of the price for 4 times the power. I think that's roughly right. And when you're talking about technology that's 2 years old, anything that's 2 years old has a very difficult time competing with something 2 years later. It's just the way things change. It's I think I see no worries across the board for anything in that regard. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So anyways, guys, that's what I think. That's what I think about the NX, guys. That's why I don't have any worries about it personally. As you guys listening, you guys, I'm sure, are aware. I don't have any worries already, but that more to be more clear, that's what I'm talking about there. So let's get back to Shadows of the Eternals coming to the Nintendo NX. Not that you announced anything, but what can help? What could help you guys? You know, we're gonna have some, you know, quite a bit of people watch this. So what can help you guys as a company? What can we do to help you to get this game to come out in a reasonable amount of time?
Just saying good things. You know, we're doing a lot of things behind the scenes, but showing your support for the game is all that we could ever ask for. So, you know, sending tweets, making posts on Facebook, you know, all of the above. First of all, it's great for our morale to hear everyone be as excited as they are for Shadow of the Eternals, and you know, from a standpoint of us moving forward, I'm extremely excited already, and we've been so quiet for so long, and it frankly, Dave, it kills me because I've only recently started doing a few things, and this is like my third or fourth I guess thing I've done since Quantum's even been incorporated. I haven't done very many you know, podcasts or anything. So but just expressing your support, you know, letting people know that, you know, you want to see the game, and that's you know, that's more than enough for us. When we start making announcements, I look forward to hearing what everyone has to say. So.
Okay, good. Is there anything you can tell us about what type of graphical effects you're using in the game? What engine it's running on? Is it a proprietary engine? What are you using as far as APIs and stuff?
So the demo that's out there now and the video was all done on the Crytek engine, and it was done with 10 people for about 10 months work. But you know, that was Crytek 3, so that engine's outdated. We haven't made announcements on anything, but look for, I guess, look for that fidelity plus higher. We really want to, so we haven't made announcements in that area, but really what we're going to go for, I guess in the same sense, we're like Nintendo. I don't care if we have the absolute best graphical fidelity out there. I absolutely want the best story and content and level of immersion in our game, that when people play the game, they come out with a catharsis and they think about the world differently. They think about, what did that all mean? How did that affect the way I think about life? If I can make people, and we can make people think about those questions, then we've done our job.
And again, to your point about graphic fidelity, exactly. If it looks good enough to tell the story, that's basically, you know, because the thing is, you go to E3 these days, you see all these trailers, you see these games, all the games look great. They all have great graphics. That's not what set Zelda apart, though. Zelda didn't have the best graphics of the show, but it was the best game of the show because it looked really good. The art style looked really good. Yes, you know, it's not graphically as impressive as some of the other games, but for what they were doing with your interaction of the game and how you play the game, it's so far above everything else that I experienced. That's what really sets the game apart. And that's why I'm thinking that, you know, all the consoles are going to have great graphics. It's just the way things are. Yeah. Who has the best games, though? Like you said, that is what matters the most. So that's why I'm optimistic about Nintendo. I can see you are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I am totally, 100%.
All right. Well, thank you so much for this interview. And again, we're going to encourage everybody to go to the Quantum Tunnel on their YouTube channel, and definitely subscribe to this channel, guys. Again, you're gonna miss out on a lot of good stuff if you don't subscribe to this channel. Is there anything else you want to say, Dennis, before we go?
No, thanks so much for the time, Dave. Really appreciate it.
Okay, guys. We'll see you guys very soon. Please subscribe, comment, like, and again, subscribe to the Quantum Tunnel. We'll talk to you guys soon on the next video. Take care.